Welcome, everyone, on another amazing episode of Awakening Dragons and Enlightening Conversations. I have the amazing Theresa with me today, and I'm just going to introduce her to everyone. She is a dragon channel, spiritual mentor, well-being thought leader, speaker, and a registered nurse with over 20 years of experience. And her mission is to awaken your dormant gifts, empowering you to become a catalyst for change and experience deep peace, joy, and fulfillment while remembering the powerful soul you truly are. Welcome, Theresa. How are you today?
Hello, Katara. I am doing great and super excited to be here with you.
Amazing. And we just passed equinox. We were just laughing that, there's so many astrological events. And I know Theresa from the Dragon Thunder Summit. So she's a dragon sister. And so today I'm sure we will talk about the dragons and light language. But we were feeling another topic is actually more present. And I certainly resonate with this topic as well. And that's ancestral healing. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a new buzzword, and it's certainly been around for a long time, but what's been arising for you in terms of your clients, or what are you seeing in ancestral work and healing these days?
I will say that it's been a theme for me as well over the last, I would say more heavily the last 2 years. And the more, um, and more I'm seeing it in my clients as well as other colleagues, other spiritual healers and teachers, like they're having to really go and work with the well ancestors to heal the lineage that is not so well. And it is prompting us to um, basically heal like the present, by connecting with the past. But I think also what it's doing is helping us to bring forward those gifts that our ancestors held, and be able to bring that forward and use it today too. So part of that healing is not just helping them heal like the the patterns that have been passed down, but also bring forward, the gold. Some people call it the golden shadow,
Mm,
which is our dormant gifts, like the beautiful things that, um, and abilities that are meant to be shared with the world. But for whatever reason in the past, it wasn't safe, or it was not accepted, or, people would fear for their lives. So that was never shared. It was always kept within. And I'm assuming that you have that same belief in that when our past lineage is not healed, it gets passed down through our DNA from generation to generation until somebody decides to step into their awakening, or they are open to stepping into their awakening and exploring those areas of healing. Because that's usually what happens when you have an awakening. You start to begin your healing process, and all those things that are coming up to the surface, your triggers, questioning of your life, questioning how you've been living and your current beliefs and practices. All of that is to bring forward what needs to be healed, what needs to be released, and then allow yourselves to step into the world with sharing the gifts that you were meant to, and allowing the past lineages to also be healed and supported, and support you once they're well, and in a state of love and kindness.
yeah. Yes, definitely. Those moments of awakening, right? Those feelings of things are just not quite right.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a little bit more. So when you say ancestral healing, I wonder, do you mean our lineage, like, I'm Chinese and that's my lineage? Or are
Mhm.
we also tapping into, our cosmic lineage, our galactic lineage, our spiritual lineages? What's your take on that?
In terms of healing, um, I'm speaking to like the ancestral lineages of our blood and our bones.
Mm,
Um, but uh, we have to incorporate our spiritual lineage in order to help us with that. So they are our, whenever you do any sort of healing, you call in your higher power, whoever that is, whoever your support team is in spirit.
mm,
Um, but in terms of actually healing, helping to heal, sorry, when I say ancestral healing, it is uh, relevant to those people within your bloodline.
yeah, yeah. No, really great to clarify that because I guess I definitely see ancestral healing as the bloodline, like mother, father, and then all those that stand behind them. But
Hmm.
I've also seen a lot of, I guess, relations between the spiritual lineage as well as the human lineage when I've been doing my own healing. So especially this year, it's been like so present. I mean, as I'm preparing to give birth and actually have a baby, like all the things from the past that are not well are
Yeah.
rising, right? And it's
Yes.
it's been really interesting to see that navigation between some of the more what I would say is more spiritual aspects and spiritual lineage as I connect to, maybe some of the star systems or the star energies. And then I realized, wait, why is my dad showing up in this part, like way back when in some galactic war or whatever? And I found it really interesting because now I'm starting to see more of that interplay between everything is related, right? Like even though I was working on whatever it was, my Lyran connection, but then my dad shows up. But
Mhm.
years ago, when I was doing just father healing, which is enough, by the way, right? Like we're making sure the audience knows wherever you are, it's fine. But I'm just seeing more of that spiritual lineage also coming into the ancestral healing. Like I guess the concept of ancestors is really I've really broadened to what it encompasses. Can you
Mhm.
speak to that a little bit? Like what are you seeing in your clients? What are you seeing in your own healing?
So, what I'm seeing in my own healing and clients is that I'm going to give an example just for context. Um, they will receive information about potentially what might happen in their marriage, and it's not positive. It is a dissolving of this partnership
Mm,
whereby in the present they're actually doing really well, but they get a message that in the future they're going to split up and
mm,
will be with different partners. And just to clarify, when you receive messages like that, it's just a probability, like it's not set in stone. So when you receive messages like that, sometimes it's like a prompt for you to do the healing. It's a prompt for, okay, like if this is a future and I don't want this outcome or I don't desire this outcome, what can I do right now? What is it telling me in terms of um, my relationship in this partnership or in this marriage that we need to work on so that we can solidify the foundation of the love that we have for each other. And when it gets to that point where that, it there's like a split or there's a decision that needs to be made, it'll be very obvious that we're going to stay together versus whatever that potential probability would have been in that timeline for you to split up. So going back to the awareness of potentially something happening, um, part of that, I think part of the experience or the learning there or trying to figure out what it is to go back to your ancestry. So this is kind of like part of the process of working with ancestors. Is not all ancestors are well, right?
Mm.
Like some are troubled, some are unhealed, some are mischievous.
So
And
let's
so,
go into that. So what do you mean when you say the ancestors aren't well? Like they passed away and they still had lots of unhealed stuff?
yes, yes. And so, yes, they still have unhealed stuff. And you don't want to work with, you don't want to directly work with those ancestors because you don't want to work with a vibration that is not going to serve you, and it's
Yeah.
actually not going to serve them either. So when we work with ancestors, we want to work with the well and the healed and the,
And I really wonder how many of them are well and healed. Like,
yeah,
I look in my family, but God bless, and they're amazing people, but I feel like this is new in their world, the world of healing, meditation, holistic, and anything, right? Like I'm the first to kind of dabble in this world. So then I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, like how many generations of
yes,
unhealed do we have? Like, can I count on
exactly.
any of my ancestors then?
But perhaps the ancestors that are the ones that you don't know about, right? You don't know the
Mm,
names for. So
sure.
those are typically the ones that you want to work with because back then, we'll just say 300 years ago, just throwing a number out there. Let's just say 300 years ago, there were ancestors that were practicing very openly, very freely.
Mm,
They were authentic in who they are, standing full in their power. And somewhere along the line there was a point in time when that was no longer true. So we're tapping into the ancestors way back then who were healed, who are healed, who are happy, who are loving, who are full of kindness, and
mm,
asking them to heal the generation, the first lineage. So it may not be your parents, your grandparents, your great great grandparents. It might be your great 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 grandparents is where they start. So that's where you start, and you
mm,
ask them to bring in healing for this particular lineage. And um, I'm saying it very generally, but when
yes.
you're tapping into what needs to be healed, I mean, that has to be an intuitive thing for you. So you know your family patterns and you know your patterns. And most likely those patterns were passed on to you. You learned it some way.
Mm,
You were taught it, right? Or it just like what is within you. So
yep.
what actions and behaviors and thought patterns that you know of are you repeating every day or constantly that doesn't serve you? What's like that bad habit that you need to break? And that's going to be like the start of it. And it might just be like procrastination. So there's usually fear behind that procrastination. There's also a sense of perfectionism, the
Mm,
standard. And that's like huge in my culture, huge in the way I was brought up because I had to be the perfect
yep.
girl,
I
you
hear
know?
you. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not just cultural. I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that standard of perfectionism. So whether it was passed on through our ancestry or even culturally, um, that's something that the healed answers can help us with. But in terms of cultural, we'll just put that on the side. We're focusing right now on our own lineage
Mm,
and the thing with those that have passed, even though they're unwell, that can change. They are not fixed in their state of being. They are able to heal and evolve as well because something continues after death. It's not just like
mhm.
the body just rots and just it is in the ground. Our
Yeah.
soul will continue to evolve and just because we are or somebody has passed, that doesn't necessarily mean that they actually have healed either.
Mm.
So when
But
we're
don't
tapping,
don't they kind of go into their own, I mean, aren't they in their own cycle of reincarnation? Like I'm just thinking,
if
okay, let's
they
say they passed away and they're not fully healed. Okay, let's upon the older, wiser ancestors, ascended ancestors who may help us. Like, does that healing flow through all the way to us now? Because how does that relate to, them being in their own cycles of reincarnation and what's in their plan?
Yeah. So so I wanted to touch on the reincarnation point before I go back or before I answer that question, because I want to make sure I don't forget about this. Um, so when we talk about ancestors, we're excluding those who have reincarnated.
Hmm.
So these are souls only, so not those who have reincarnated. And then in terms of how that healing, like how does it work, right? If we ask our older ancestors to step through and be our guides to heal the great 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 grandparents lineage, how does that work?
Hmm.
So it does go through um the great 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 to great great to great to grandparents to parents to you, but it's not like instant. Usually, like you have to keep it, you have to keep doing it, you have to keep asking until you feel like that particular issue has
Hmm.
been healed. But it's not true though unless you also see it in your life. If you're asking for the healed ancestors to come through and help you assist with healing a specific lineage and you're not seeing it within your own life, then it hasn't worked. Um,
Mm.
yeah. And that's an
So,
indication that you have to keep going back and do the work with them.
so through prayer, through devotion, through just
Yes.
asking
Through,
them.
yeah, asking, through ritual. So ritual could look like so many different ways. Like you
Yeah.
could you could have an altar
Yeah, I
with,
just got that like right away. I was like, make them an
yeah,
altar, because I
yeah,
don't know if you have it in your culture as well, but we have like the ancestral altar. Usually, you put all the names of your
yeah,
ancestors as well. I think you put all
yeah.
the names, but you can put your intention. You don't have to know all their
Mhm.
names either.
Right, right, right. Yeah. I mean, yes, we do. I don't know if my parents, yeah, I guess my parents call it an altar, but it's kind of like spread out everywhere.
Shrine. It's
Anyways, there's
probably like
there's
a
a
shrine.
there's an honoring, there's an honoring of past
Yeah.
loved ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like my grandparents are a really great example of unhealed, um, unhealed lineage, because my grandfather was an alcoholic, and um, and so alcoholism is an addiction. So I see it like it's not the alcoholism that's the illness, it's the addiction that's the illness. And I see it skipping my dad's generation, but affecting my lineage.
Mm.
There's someone in like my group of siblings who are suffering from that.
Yeah.
And, so when we're working with ancestors, I never connect with my grandparents. I try to
Mm.
connect way. I don't even know how old they are, these ancestors that I'm connecting with. I only know about them because they came into my dreams and they were really scary looking.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that they were my ancestors until they started coming back over and over again. And I kind of felt a safety eventually. And I was scared initially because uh, they didn't look like the typical Vietnamese person.
Mm.
They look like very primal, very uh I don't want to offend them, but it just primal. I'll just say that. They just look real primal and non-conventional and wild. I think wild would be okay. And I'm still trying to break out of this like good girl persona.
Old.
So
Yeah.
so this wild, there's still some fear about what wild means for me. And I've been doing
Mm.
little things here and there to allow me to feel more comfortable with being different. But I guess my point in saying that is, even if you feel like a specific lineage was, I wouldn't say loving, but like, I mean, you can be kind and unhealed at the same time. So,
Absolutely.
so there's that, again, use your intuition. So there's a lot of trust in this type of healing. Use your intuition to help guide you,
Mm,
because your heart always knows. Your mind might battle it a little bit, but your heart always knows. And there's no good or bad in being healed or unhealed. There's just a different way of working with them, right? So if they're unhealed, then you just have to set a boundary because you don't want that unhealed ancestor to get too close into your energy field. Because what happens is then their patterns start appearing in your life,
mm,
because now they're a part of you. Like your auric field creates your reality. So if you have an unhealed ancestor that is now around your energy field, you've now created a new reality with their energy.
hmm. Yeah, well, interesting you say that your ancestors have been coming to you in your dreams. Like, I never really think about calling upon my grandparents per se, although they used to appear quite often to share messages, like not long after they passed. But I see some, I guess what I call them, they're more like family or lineage guides. Like when I see this one gentleman, I'm going to call him a gentleman, like he always appears like a Confucius or like a Lao Tzu, maybe it appears that way so I would recognize, oh, that's the wise old man,
Yeah.
and it always felt like, oh, they are guides even for the family, like they've been around, I guess, our lineage. So I've connected to that kind of healed, family guide,
Mhm.
family ancestor. And then the other interesting thing I would say is, as I was also working with the dragon energies, I would often feel a lot of the oriental dragons. And I'll probably ask you how you feel about that too. And there's lots of people, maybe because I'm an native English speaker and I don't speak Chinese, I can't read Chinese. But when I'm looking for, or when I was looking for information on the dragons, there's so much information out there in the West, right? Western dragons. But I was always feeling this connection, to the Eastern dragons, the Oriental ones, and they are different and characteristic and how they are viewed and how they are portrayed. And it was really hard to find some information, but I really was feeling that lineage to them as well. Like the Chinese are called the dragon people.
Mhm.
Before China adopted the cute, cuddly, panda bear as its representation, it used to be the dragon. Like it really is the dragon nation. So I
Mhm.
wondered, if you also felt some of your dragon energies in that oriental way, if they feel connected in the lineage and ancestral aspect as well.
Yeah, actually, I've always felt connected to dragons. I just didn't know they were real.
Most of us don't, right? We just think, oh,
Yeah.
they're fairy tales, and you wonder
Yeah.
why you loved all the dragon movies and the books and the fairy tales, and then you're like, oh, now I know why.
And coincidentally, I was born in the year of the dragon. So the dragon, um, it's always just been familiar to me,
Mm,
but again, it was very fairy tale like, and I've only known of the Asian dragon because of my
uh-huh.
lineage. Yeah. I didn't know that there were other clans or lineages, whatever term that you want to use.
Mm.
Yeah, until I activated my dragon abilities.
Yeah, I know. It's like, what do I call this? Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
and then the whole world opened up to me. I was like, oh my God, there's so many.
yeah, yeah. And it's a very human thing, and I talk about it on other podcasts with other dragon speakers, but there really is a world of them. And even saying awakening dragons. Like I feel the message is to awaken those parts of yourself, all that dragon represents, whether that may be the magic and the mystical within you, or the power, or the truth, the loving, the protection. Like it means so many things, and they're in so many cultures, isn't it? It's not just in our Oriental cultures, but in so many cultures. So I feel like, this year being Year of the Dragon, of course, they are in the prime, they are in the spotlight. There's so much attention, on them, that hopefully the world sees that energy, feels that energy, even if they can't pinpoint it. So I think Year of the Dragon has been great in that aspect of really making it more prominent, for people to be aware. And so how would people start? So now they know, all right, so I've got unhealed ancestors, I've got well ones. Where would people even begin with their ancestral healing? I know you said already, maybe it's about looking at our own patterns. What else? Like, what are some cues that people can identify? Oh, I should look at my ancestry.
So, this one's an easy one. When you interact with your parents, what triggers you the most about them? And then being like just the observer without the emotion, so without triggers, like being the observer, what unhealthy patterns do you see them repeating over and over again? So for example, like my dad, he doesn't see it as a problem, but he's a hoarder. Like his office is uh under he calls it organized chaos because he knows
Yes.
exactly where everything is. But you walk in and there's boxes and papers like everywhere. And it's
Mm,
just confined in this little place because that's like his safe room or whatever. And it's funny because he has like this side business that he does. So he handles paperwork for people. And I'm like, I don't know how you can keep track of where everything is, but okay, Dad. And one time I tried to actually organize and purge for him because I know that he would never do it. And I didn't throw anything away. I just put the stuff that I thought really wasn't necessary anymore. Like,
yeah.
I mean, really weird things like receipts from
Yeah, yeah,
restaurants
yeah.
that 20 years ago, you know what I mean? Just
Like,
not relevant. And the IRS is not going to try to,
yeah.
look for like something that was done 20 years ago. So I put it in a box and he ruffled through it and he took like, I would say 90% of the stuff back. So it's for my dad, that's not triggering to me. To me, that's like, oh gosh, like what, like that's not healthy. So I see that for him because I know his history. I know part of his story
Mm,
is, the the fear of losing everything again,
yeah.
you know? And so this is like how he keeps everything safe. Like I know where everything is. I want to keep everything, otherwise I'm going to lose it. Like I lost my home, like I lost my country, like I lost my family, like all of that. So that is unhealed stuff. But it didn't start there. Yes, he was in the Vietnam War, but that sense of scarcity and lack and fear of things being taken away from him, that didn't start there. It started like a few generations, probably more than 4 generations back.
Mm,
So in terms of where to start, yes, so be the observation of your parents' patterns and also what is it that triggers you about them, because that's going to be your pattern. Um, and see how far back you can go in terms of memory. Some people are adopted, so they have no idea. And that's okay because you can still do ancestral healing for your bloodline, even if you had no idea who they were, because this
mm,
is all in spirit.
yeah.
And I would like to also say that our healed ancestors are here to help make the unhealed ancestors. So when we say in terms of ancestral healing, the
Mm,
term ancestors, we would like to embody that as those who are healed. But in this case, we have to differentiate. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it gets too confusing. And I'd like to also share, because I didn't just come up with this myself, by the way. I learned under a really seasoned practitioner. His name is Daniel Four, and he wrote the book Ancestral Medicine, and it is so
Mm.
good. So if anyone who is interested in diving into ancestral healing, he's a wonderful, wonderful guide. His knowledge comes from accumulation of his experiences. So he is a practicing Muslim. He also studied with an African tribe to understand rituals and things like that. And, he did his own uh, uh, learnings of his own ancestry and history. And so he has a lot of wisdom backed
Mm.
that backs his practices, just in
Yeah.
case somebody's wondering about his creds.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
I take learnings from him and I incorporate it into my own practice. And that's what I would recommend for other people. If you don't know where to start, then you could simply do it through meditation and call on those ancestors who are well, and go beyond your fourth generation. Go way beyond that. Go beyond the to the generations where you don't know their names anymore. Or if you're in a very rare case where there is written history of ancestors, go beyond the written history of those ancestors. And then you want to, just like anytime you do any healing, you call on your protection, your support team. Not that you need to fear anything, just that you want to have a safe, quiet space to connect with those healed ancestors, because it's the healed ones who will be communicating with those who are not. So you're not going to communicate with the unhealed, you're communicating with the healed
Mm.
ancestors. Yeah. And you're going to do it with intent. So after you call them in, ask the healed ancestor guide to show you the condition of the lineage as a whole.
Mhm.
So everything, just ask them to show you everything. We're not going to count like how many people that is, or how many
Yeah, just
generations that
overview.
is. Yes, just ask for an overview, and then try to understand, see if you can feel what happened in that lineage.
Yeah.
Where do there needs to be repair between the life of the healed ancestor and the present? So where in this span of lineages does this need to heal first? Because
Mm.
once you heal that, then it's just going to be a ripple effect
Yeah.
that comes through.
And I presume that you differentiate between the matriarch lineage and the patriarch, like the father's line and the mother's line.
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. That's
You
interesting.
don't have to.
I've like felt very specific things that come through. Oh, that's from my mother's line, and that's from
Yes, you
my father's
can. You
line.
definitely can differentiate that. Like when it comes through, you can, but you don't have to set the intention that,
Mm.
oh, I'm gonna heal. Like I just want to heal my mom's line. It should actually be both. When you're bringing the guide through, it'll be, because they're just the guide, remember? So they'll be helping you to see, to feel, to know um, this the safest way to be able um to what's the word, like not remediate, but like you're like be the medium
Yeah,
for
yeah,
these
yeah.
these two lines, or these two
Mm.
lineages. And then sometimes when you're given like this picture, or you feel it, or it might not be like, I mean, I'm just picturing in my head, like when I did this, I just saw like all these heads, right? Not with faces, just like representing everybody. And so it'll be whatever it is. It could be fire, it could be a line of thread, it could be
Hmm.
ropes. So don't judge it. Again, you just have to trust yourself when it comes to this, because nobody else can do it except you. You definitely can have somebody else, like a practitioner, help you. But in terms of what you know to be true, it has to come from you. And it has to be led by you because you are the blood and you hold
Yeah.
that knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always so empowering, isn't it? When you tap in, when you can feel the information, when you know that you're the one that's facilitating that healing for yourself. And I think that's a great place to start, Teresa. I couldn't agree more. It's like, don't look too far. Just look at your parents. Just look at the things that still trigger you. And recently, back in June, July, when I was visiting home in Canada, which I hadn't been there in 4 years. And I've been doing lots of, daddy wounds and healing probably for the last decade. And I was actually a little bit surprised. I was a bit taken aback because I reflected, I'm like, oh my God, that still triggers me. So there
Mhm.
was more work to be done. So I think that's probably a very sound and very great reminder to myself. Like maybe I just need to tap further back, like, you're probably also familiar with doing inner child healing and, whatever traumas happened in this lifetime that I can remember. But maybe it's like, let me just go another way. Let me just go back to the ancestors and see if I can bring in the healing that way and kind of meet in the middle. That's what it's making me think of,
Mhm.
to kind of go at it from all angles.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and before I forget too, because you mentioned lifetime. So the ancestral healing is only for this lifetime.
Mm,
Um, not that past lives um aren't past lives are real to me, but in terms of ancestral healing, it is for this lifetime for you
mm,
now.
mm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I think that working with those ancestors whom you don't know the names for is very powerful and an energy that not too many of us are taught about. And I think it came up for me because of the dragons, because
Mm,
yeah, because my connection with the dragons were so connected to my culture, and then just channeling dragons itself um, was part of my healing because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be visible. I didn't want to step into the work that I'm doing today because of what I thought my family would think of
yeah. Do they
the
know? I mean, like my mom
uh,
kind of knows, but not
my
really.
siblings, my siblings know. My parents, I don't even want to explain it to them.
Yeah.
They know I talk to angels, which is true. So it's like a truth by omission.
Mm.
I don't tell them about their dragons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would be way too much for them.
Yes, I agree. But at the same time, I guess I don't hide it either. Like I certainly, well, I was just about to say I don't do light language in front of them, but that's actually not true. They've definitely heard me tone, like I've had sessions in the bedroom and they're outside and I feel this energy of I don't know what she's doing, so I'm not even going to ask because I'm not sure that I'm ready to know whatever her answer is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just thought, cool. At least they let me do my thing and they're not, judging. They may be, and this goes for anyone else who's also listening who may have had, a little bit different upbringing or family who doesn't understand what you're becoming or what you're remembering. Like it's really important that you stay true to, well, this is a rising and letting it to rise, right? Like I know, Teresa, you also do a lot of voice activation and, all the light language stuff. And I think that's all part of finding our expression, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like,
Yes.
really allowing ourselves, well, yes, I am weird. Yes, I am talking to dragons. And yes, we are being public about it. Like, a lot of what you're saying in your story also resonates with me because it's like, how long have we been hiding with our gifts because we didn't know what they were? And
Mm-hmm.
then that fear or the transition and the embracing of, okay, well, now it's stepping out into the limelight. Like, for goodness sakes, we're doing, a podcast on awakening dragons, talking about this, this is owning and embodying the power, which I think is a really powerful part of the process for all who are awakening to their expression and to their voice.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about the dragons a little bit. We still have a bit of time. So how was that like for you when they started coming through? Was that like, whoa, what is this? Or did it just feel like, I know this energy, now I'm just letting it out? Like, how was that for you?
It was not it was scary for me. It was scary because I didn't understand it. And the way they came through was not gentle. It was very strong, and I was convulsing, and I was doing all sorts of things with my throat and tongue and mouth, and I was in a safe space when it happened. So in that sense, I was able to allow it to happen and completely surrender to it.
Mm.
And but I was still completely in my body because I'm like, I am not leaving. Like I am here I'm staying for whatever this is because this is crazy right now. So basically what happened was I was at Mount Shasta at a retreat. I was helping to hold space. There's a sound bath that night. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what it was. I also knew that Mount Shasta had a lot of dragon energy.
Mm.
So, so I did give them permission. I did say, if something were to happen, I'm going to allow it. But I didn't understand Qatar. I thought it was going to be like, oh, this
Yeah, some messages coming
angelic.
through.
Yes, I'm like, it's going to be like euphoric and like cosmic
Yeah,
and
light and love, light and love.
yeah, yeah. It was nothing like that. I feel like if someone saw me, they would have had to call 911. Like it was wild. And I was so back to the sound bath. As soon as I stepped into the yurt where the sound bath was being held, my heart started racing. And but there was a it didn't make sense to me that my heart was racing because I wasn't nervous. I
Hmm.
wasn't worried. There wouldn't be a reason why my heart is racing. There's no
Yeah.
reason to this like fight or flight response, you know? So I'm like, well, what is going on? So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just like take some deep breaths, and the breaths didn't work. And whatever I did, it didn't work. Eventually, I just gave into it and I said, well, maybe the sound bath is going to help me relax because that would be the point of it. So I laid down, and as soon as the facilitator started drumming, that energy, the my heart, it started pounding outside of my chest. And then this energy just started building within my body. And I wasn't going to let it out because I had no idea what it was going to be. And
Mm.
nobody around me, like there's like almost 20 other women. I had no idea who they were. I've never met them before. And, holding space for these women for the next week, I didn't want to be the one to ruin it. That's what I was thinking in my head. Like something bad's going to come out of me. Like I'm being possessed. I'm going to go crazy. Like, now I'm going to ruin the entire experience for everybody. So I literally was like this. I was like, please not now, God, please not now, God, please not now. Just praying that whatever it is, it would go away. But it just kept getting stronger and stronger because that sound, the drum, it was like calling this
Mm.
energy up and out of me. And eventually I couldn't hold on anymore. There was just no physical way. So I just let go. I just surrendered. And as soon as I surrendered, I started making um, this noise with my throat, like clicks and hissing and like uh, like a K noise, like, but anyways, it was like
Mhm.
sounds that I would never have intentionally made. And then my body started convulsing. I couldn't stop it, but I kind of knew it was dragons because I'm like, what else would be doing this? So there's a lot going on right now. There's
Mhm.
fear, but there's also curiosity. And
Of
as soon as I
course. Yeah.
started making the sounds, my friend Amy, who was the facilitator there, just like was there, and she was holding space for me, and that's when I felt completely safe. And I allowed it to happen like for 45 minutes, and it was a dragons because I opened my eyes and I saw 5 dragons up on top of the yurt flying above me. As the facilitators continued the sound baths, then the dragons, or me, I guess it's me, right? Um, they started toning and they started singing, they started harmonizing. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is not me. Like I would never do this, like this is so disruptive, but this is kind of cool. And then I'm like, oh my God, why is my body convulsing? Like I am still just in here trying to figure out like what is going on and how many dragons are in my body. Like, what is it that you want with me? Amy also was telling me that as I was going through my experience, they were channeling through her, telling them which chakras to open and which chakras to close. So as one left, she would close that chakra. And as one was coming down, she would open that chakra. So really,
Hmm.
it was, it wasn't just exploration for the dragons to understand a human body, because that was actually their first time in a human body, but it was also healing. It was a
Yeah.
healing for me, opening up the pathways, clearing out the blocks, because the dragon energy I work with, at least, is not gentle. Like it's very like, let's plow through. And I know that's very masculine, but that is like the energy that is required for the people that I am meant to work with. They don't respond necessarily gentle. They respond more to, okay, let's go, let's do this. Like open up so that we can get you moving. Let's get this energy flowing. Um, and and that was my experience for 45 minutes. And it was crazy. At the end, I ended up sharing with the people who were there what had happened, because I wasn't sure if they knew it was me or if they thought it was the sound bath facilitators. Uh,
Yeah. Hmm.
After I shared, several of them, like 4 or 5 of them, came up to me and told me that they'd never heard of the sounds I was making before, but somehow it felt very familiar to them. So it was
Hmm.
like an activation for those too, for those people who
Yes.
were meant to be there. So I thought that was really beautiful, and it made me feel less um ashamed and um less of a freak about it. For a long time, I really felt shame behind how they came through and how they come through, especially with my tongue moving and things like that. Uh, and once I've come to accept that, it's like, this is actually really cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that they came through this way. And I'm grateful that it was that powerful and that uh intense, because had it not been, I don't think I would have believed it. Had it
Yeah.
just been a vision, I wouldn't have believed it.
Well, it's interesting that your experience, which is a stark contrast to my connection to the dragons, and how I'm sure for each and every one of us it'll be different. I have heard of other wild stories of initiation with the dragons, right? And I
Mhm.
do believe it is a thing. There is a defining moment, an event like there was for you, and a defining event where for 45 minutes that's what was happening, dragon initiation or activation. Whereas for me, I feel like the story took a little bit longer. Like Dragon, yes, absolutely did drop into my shamanic journeys and I was really sensing them. My whole back actually is a full back tattoo when I sat up because it wasn't pre-designed. It was kind of drawn, but like, channeled really. And then I sat up and it was like, whoa, it was like the face of a dragon. So the
Mm,
medicine of dragon was actually working with me for a while before as an outside energy, like it's outside of
yes,
me,
yes,
before understanding, oh no, like I am the dragon.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
there was a whole other, thing going on. And I guess, we each have our destiny path as well on why we get initiated the ways that we do, because I have always wondered, like, why can't my experiences just be full on so that I believe and I know without a shadow of a doubt, right? Because, when you have such a big experience, it's like, oh, yeah, it's real.
Hmm.
Whereas I think because one of my big life lessons is about trust, trusting in my higher self, trusting in my guidance system and all the beings, it's had to be this super discernment process. Is it
Hmm.
really the dragons? Is it really you? And like really having to explore in those ways. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And me just adding on to say, I sometimes, okay, don't give me a huge hectic experience just because I've said this now. I'm super happy with slow and steady, okay, slow and steady. But
Well,
I'm
let me just
also
add. let me
Yeah.
just add that there was like, introductions to them. I
Mm.
just didn't know until the activation that
Yeah, right.
introductions. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I had participated in 2 plant medicine ceremonies, and they introduced themselves there through Kali.
Mm.
But I didn't know it was them. I thought it was just Kali. And
Yeah.
the noises that she was making was very similar to what I was making at the
Yeah.
Shasta. So there was like,
A
definitely a
lead up.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's often the case. It's like the body whispers until it is yelling or something is,
Mhm.
really big and happening. The guides are there. They've been tapping on your shoulder. It's just if you don't hear them, then they have to make a bigger sound and have to make a bigger entrance.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that story. So before we close, how does bringing through the dragon energies for you help in your client sessions, help in the healing? Like how do you make those connections?
I have noticed that it's activating people. And what I mean by activating is like somebody will have a session with me and they'll start speaking light language, or someone will have a session with me and they'll start like being able to activate their clairvoyance or one of their clair gifts. So it is a energy that are when the timing is right, right? When the timing is right and you are open and willing to be able to receive this energy, it will give you like exactly what it is that you need in that moment. And the way
Mhm.
I work with them really is just like, and it can be several ways. It just depends on the client. But typically, I allow them to come right through my crown, through my heart, and out through my hands. I'm not always in trance with them, but I like to have them, within my body, with so that I don't have to think. I let them do the
Mhm.
healing. They move my hands, they move my tongue, they move, they make the sounds or whatever. Um, and then through that, it's like in the beginning, I used a lot of fire. To move the energy from the root up. And now it's less fire and more just like where's, and I think this is like similar to a lot of energy healing, but where's the densest part of your body? And let's work there first. But through the light language or dragon language, whatever you want to call it, it's
Yeah.
like these codes, these scriptures are coming through, and it starts to like replace that DNA within your body or transform, I won't say replace, transform the DNA that's within your body that has helped, that has kept that closure there, or that block there to help you release. And so that's just one of the ways that it comes through me and how it works like during a session, for example. But I mean, I feel like it's like different all the time,
Yes,
it just
yes.
like depends what they need. But that's kind of like the thing that pops in my head that I guess I'm meant to share with whoever's meant to listen to this later.
Yes.
So,
They just
mhm.
come, they do their thing. Sometimes
Yeah,
the thing is this, sometimes the thing is that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And hopefully, this has allowed people to pay attention to the current patterns, whatever is ripe and ready to transform, to be transformed. I suppose there's always an intention that I want to share with people, like be open, right? Like you had that openness when you're at Mount Shasta to say, what if something happens, like let's do it. So be open. Maybe it's the dragons that come to you. Maybe it's one of your old, healed ancestors. Maybe it's another being. I think that curiosity is such an important trait and characteristic, to have, because if we weren't open, then, we'd be stuck in our little boxes and our little paradigms. So I think that's a great reminder for everyone. All
Mm.
right. So I want to share that Theresa channels the Wisdom of the Dragon Collective, the Archangels, her shamanic ancestors, and to guide people through these profound spiritual awakenings. So I'm going to share all the links and things. Do you have any courses or programs coming up that you want to mention now?
I do have a retreat coming up in November, so you can find that on my website. It's the 15th through the 17th in the Dallas, Texas area. And then my courses won't start up again until 2025. So we have the light language and voice expansion course. And then we have the 6-month dragon facilitator program, but that
Oh,
won't
what's
open
that
until
about?
2025.
That's teaching people how to be a dragon facilitator?
Yes, tapping
Wow.
into dragon energy, their own dragon energy,
Mm,
so this is like tapping into your unique blueprint of your dragon energy, your symbols, your modality, and helping you to open up to that and learn how to use it confidently.
yeah, beautiful. Amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for our chat, dear dragon sister, and a reminder of all the things that we need to look at, and a reminder
Mhm.
of the golden shadow. I do use that term and I love it, and people should not shy away from it. We're so intent on our shadow work that sometimes we forget to look at the golden shadow. So,
Yes.
absolutely, we should embrace all the gifts that are our innate birthright.
Mhm.
So, thank you so much for being here. I'll share all the links. Thank you for this beautiful conversation and all that you do and all that you be.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Bye, everybody.